synchronization is what we're going to talk about today, as well as some new and exciting things that are going on with Sophos. Synchronized security, like I said, is the idea of taking individual things, putting them together, and creating a system, creating a process that's going to allow you to better take on the challenges that you face in the IT community. As Jessie so nicely did, she introduced us. I'm Schlueter Ben Ellering, and we are the Sophos team that works with your team here at EarthBend. Thank you all for inviting us today. So what is synchronized security? It's the idea of linking the network and the endpoint security to deliver unparalleled protection by accelerating and automating threat discovery, analysis, and response. Taking the best things that Sophos has to offer and giving them a connection, giving them something that will work together to create the most powerful system that you can have for security. We had a quote here from one of our security specialists over at IDC. No other company is close to delivering this type of synchronized and integrated communications between endpoint and network security efforts. It's a pretty nice statement, and something that we really take pride in as far as what Sophos does. Some of the strategies that we have and some of the things that I'm going to be going over today are the idea of complete and intelligent security made simple. Like they said at the beginning of the video, we're not trying to make your life more complex, we're trying to make it easier. We're trying to engineer the complexity out of the processes that is security and create a simple, integrated platform for you to be able to use for security. Integrated and synchronized. Designed for IT organizations of any size, whether it's a single person, whether it's tens of thousands of people, we have the platform to be able to support you with the help of EarthBend and be able to give you complete security. We also can manage and deliver this through the cloud. That's something that Ben's going to be looking at. One of the big points that we're going to be looking at is that kind of infinity symbol that you saw going through the cloud, going through what we call now Sophos Central, and the process of synchronizing all of these products together. And then taking a look at a channel first model. We are only going to be working with folks like EarthBend. They are one of, actually, as of today, number one in our region for sales. So congratulations to them. But they are a great partner and they know our product inside and out, which is one of the things that we really like to do is empower and teach our partners how to sell and how to position and how to work with our product. So looking at the Sophos Central admin, this is kind of the process that will take place. For partners like EarthBend, they're going to have a management console where they can manage all of the individual customers, taking a look at the different things that are going on. For you as the end user, we're going to be taking a look at the admin console. That's where you're going to be able to manage all of those different pieces of your security from a single centralized console. And then there's also a self-service area where you can allow and create and build different outputs of policies for your organization, for different admin rights, different things that you need people to be able to do, and different things that people. So this is a kind of a big slide of things, a little ambitious. We're about a little over halfway through the year. We actually are on a European fiscal year, so our year is actually not over until March, technically. We're about halfway through our year right now. And these are some of the integrations that we're looking at doing with security through our entire product line. So endpoint, mobile, server, encryption, on the network, or excuse me, on the user side, and then on the network side, we've got our UTM, our wireless, our email, and our web that we're building out. Some really cool new features, and that's what I'm going to let Ben talk about because he's the one that's going to do it. Looking at our vendor landscape, this is something that we are really proud of at Sophos. When you look at what we've got available, sorry, this one's will the network, the endpoint, and the sync security, we're the only ones in the industry that are doing that today. We're the only ones that are able to have our endpoint and our firewall or our network speak to each other and create this synchronization or this heartbeat. So as we're looking at intercepting threats with synchronized security, we want to take a look at kind of where we come from and what are some of the things that are going on as far as the evolution of threats and what we're seeing in the marketplace. So these are kind of some of the traditional malwares that we've had kind of starting off way back in the 90s, building up through the 2000s, and taking a look at how they're what they're doing, how are they doing it, sending things out, what are you clicking on, what are you doing. People weren't really familiar with what this stuff was doing. You know, you hear about viruses, you hear about malware, you hear these different words. You knew it was bad, and you just kind of hoped that you wouldn't get it. Tools started coming out, antivirus, basic antivirus, signature-based antivirus, that was able to mitigate the risk of a lot of these malware threats. But now, going into the last 3 to 5 years, we're seeing some very advanced exploits and different things that are taking place that are really giving people some headaches. We heard the word, and I know Sean Mendel's not allowed to say ransomware anymore, but who has had or knows somebody that has had a crypto or ransomware attack in the last 12 months? Don't be afraid, raise your hand. It's okay. Thanks. Those are the things that we're seeing. When you look at a room and then you look at the world, we hear this all the time. So one of the things that we're doing is really trying to figure out how to get rid of the pains of those exploits. So I'll turn it over to Ben at this point to take a look a little bit deeper at some of the different things that are going to be happening, and then the next step that we're going to do is take a look at a little bit of the anatomy and the threat landscape of what's going on in security today.
Thanks, Rose. There's a lot to cover. I really only have about 40-45 minutes. Hopefully we can cover everything that I want in a lot of time. A couple of the things that I think the industry, being the security industry, is really doing a disservice to a lot of customers and a lot of people that are trying to figure out what's going on, because there's a lot of confusion out there. When we look at all the different techniques, we look at advanced threats, we look at traditional malware, you see a lot of different companies saying, well, signature-based antivirus or hash-based AV is dead. Well, that's somewhat true. You know, when you look at the types of threats that a signature or a traditional antivirus, the guys who've been in the game a long time, that they look for, just from a hash standpoint, does miss a lot of the advanced threats today. So you need to make sure that you're evolving. And as we kind of go through and talk about some of these advanced techniques that are out there, the exploit detection and some of the other capabilities that we have, hopefully you'll see that the signature-based antivirus is a very good tool to still have in your bag of tricks, because it will block the known stuff. It's very efficient in knowing if you're going and you're writing hashes, especially if you're comparing against files. It's very efficient. So it's not dead, it's just less effective than it has been. So kind of as we go through and take a look at the threat landscape, we'll cover a few of those aspects. Now I know a lot of people, a lot of the big news you hear is big healthcare. Those are the companies that they're really targeting. We know that's not true. We know that smaller businesses are being impacted by ransomware. Why is that? Because now they're actually able to get money from an individual user at home. Home users now, when their pictures or their files become infected with ransomware, are willing to pay a ransom. They're willing to pay to get their data back. That's why we've seen that explosion into, you know, the really advanced threats, because there's a lot of money in that sort of business, I guess you might call it that. One of the events we kind of heard a little bit about today is malvertising. And that the malvertising threat chain. I'm not going to cover a lot of different events and a lot of different techniques that the bad guys are using. We'll cover a few of them. When we look at malvertising, essentially that is an ad that shows up on a computer's website, web screen that they're going to. It can be at home, it can be at work, anywhere. Web filtering really doesn't do a good job of looking at malvertising events, right? Because you go to MSN or you go to Facebook, if you're allowing them access to those sites, they show up, ads show up all the time. You have the real-time bidding network where they go through and say, okay, these are the ads. They do some lookups, say, okay, well, this person was just looking at lawnmowers, so let's try and find some ads that are going to be more efficient and target that exact person, you know, more efficiently. So then the bad guys win. They've thrown a malvertising event, and you see this where, okay, well, I can get some free money from PayPal. They click on it, and they're going to actually exploit a vulnerability in Flash. So there's a number of things that happen, and there's a number of things in this chain that you want to be able to block and look at. One is you can block ads, right? Just from a web filtering standpoint, you can go in and say don't allow ads. We know that's okay, but it tends to cause a lot of help desk calls, so a lot of administrators aren't necessarily blocking the ads. We can block flash. That's, again, not necessarily what's going to happen. And this is just one of the techniques or one of the exploits they're going after. There's a number of them that they can go after. That ad shows up again, the user clicks on it, and all of a sudden they have some sort of an event because the user, again, clicked on it. When you look at, traditionally, it was always blocking the bad guys from getting in, stopping that from happening. But definitely over the last 5 years, it's more, we need to do end user training because the end users themselves are the ones who are actually initiating the attack from inside. Phishing attacks. This one is fairly common. These are some of the more basic ones, but again, that industry didn't notice that the more they can personalize, the more they can put your name in that title, if they can make it look like it's coming from somebody you know, and they have all this information, they can collect it all. So now I can go ahead and click on that particular link. I'll show kind of a phishing attack in one of my demos in a little bit here. This is a big one, exploits as a service. You can sign up for this service. So you have your exploit kit admin. They're the guys who are developing the actual attack that you're going to go after. Here we see a common word that we heard earlier is Tor. So again, Tor browsers, you can block Tor browsers, that's nothing new, right? Application control, we have firewalls that have layer 7 control, you have some ability to do that in web filtering, so you can block the Tor browser. However, again, most of your victims, remember, they're going over HTTP, HTTPS. So a lot of your threats have moved into using those protocols to actually launch the attack. Again, very sophisticated. They pay, how many cents per infection per customer that they're able to get this event on, and then they're either harvesting information, they're trying to get information so they can sell it, or they're trying to, again, do a ransomware where they can get money directly from that victim itself. When we look at all the different ways that these things can come into an environment, it's very challenging for an administrator. And what we found, and it has been true, is we're always chasing the bad guys, right? They come out with a new 0-day or a new variant going after an existing exploit. We know that patching isn't getting done effectively. A lot of reasons behind that. So the administrators and the good guys are always having to catch up. And that's where you hear things like 0-day threat prevention. Again, looking and people going after variants of an existing attack. When we look at 90% of the breaches are actually from exploits. So there's an exploit kit. They're actually going after something, a vulnerability in Explorer, in Java, whatever it might be. And 90% of those exploits are from known vulnerabilities. Again, patching. The scary stuff is over here. Is also when we start looking at, since all that is happening, we have the 90% of exploits. We're missing about 10% of the events out there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when an event happens, most security staff don't have the proper skills to go in and do an incident response. What do? We go in and remediate the event. We clean that event up. We wipe the system. We clean the virus. Whatever it is we do. That's about as far as most of us go. We don't really know what happened behind the scenes. So having the ability to make that part of your incident response easier, I think, is very important for a lot of customers. So our philosophy is, first of all, let's try and prevent it from getting on the system. If we can even prevent the user from clicking on that link, prevent that advertising event from being distributed or showing up on their website, that's going to be a big part of the game. So prevention, in our opinion, is the first and foremost the technique you need to use to try and block that. Next is, if you aren't able to prevent it and something is happening, a ransomware event, something along those lines, you need to be able to detect it. Once you detect it, you want to be able to stop it from what it's doing, potentially reverse its processes, clean it up, whatever it is within that process. So detection is the next part. If you can't prevent it, you have to be able to at least detect it and then respond. Tell me what happened. Now, this next generation term gets thrown around a lot. I don't really like that next gen term, but it's a marketing term and that's what everybody seems to use. So when we look at the next generation endpoint detect and response, I don't think there's a real good definition in the industry of what that is. And again, I think that's doing a disservice to a lot of you because somebody's going to call themselves a next generation and they only do one or two parts of what I think is a next generation product needs to have. And it needs to have all three of these pillars when you look at the things that you want to do from an administrator. So let's talk about some of these techniques that are out there. So when we first start, the .exe, this is execution prevention. There's some companies out there who say that's what they do. They block executables or they block the threat from actually executing. Sometimes that's their only bag of tricks. You want to be able to block, something from happening within an environment, but kind of as we know and as we've seen on some of the slides, really it comes from vulnerabilities. So you look at vulnerabilities for Microsoft Office file, JavaScript, PDFs. Those are where the vulnerabilities, that's what's being exploited. So you need to be able to understand that exploit and be able to protect against, or understand the vulnerability and protect against that vulnerability. And then you have some of your other control aspects. Blocking access to malicious content, malicious URLs. You look at reputation-based. So you want to be able to block sites based on reputation. You want to be able to block based on geolocation. We probably don't need to see traffic coming into our sites for China, or we probably don't even need to go to China for anything, right? We should not have to go to those sorts of geolocations. So being able to take a look at that is very important. Phishing, that is really how a lot of the ransomware events are being triggered. By an email, by something showing up in the end user's inbox. They click on it, and all of a sudden you've got files that are being encrypted, and you have problems in your environment. Unauthorized apps. So there's also, when we start looking at combining some of these things like application whitelisting, great idea. However, it is an administrative overhead. And if you look at application whitelisting, unless you're doing some of the really advanced application whitelisting, remember, exploits or vulnerabilities are what's being exploited. So you're allowing Word.exe to run. You're allowing Internet Explorer.run to run. You're not really protecting from the vulnerabilities that are inherent in those applications. So although some people seem to think that's the magic bullet, there is no silver bullet. You need to be able to do all of these components. The last component is exploits. This is actually going in and looking at the exploit itself. What exploit are they using? Stack pivot table, heap spray. We'll look at a couple of them and be able to talk about what an exploit is and how they're going about taking a look at that. These are some of the recent statistics that we have in our success rate in being able to block and be able to manage those sorts of events. Good information to know. So when we start taking a look at what we've just released with Intercept is exploit prevention technique. So this is unique in the industry. Initially, file antivirus scanning. You come out with a new variant, you're looking for a virus, you're preparing hashes, you're looking at that sort of thing, and you're able to determine, is this a good file, is it a bad file, has it been infected? That's what that was back in the day what was started. The unknown exploits, this is your zero-day threat prevention sort of stuff. Things that are unknown, you don't really know about what's happening. You have some zero-day techniques that are able to take a look at protecting against a known issue. Well, what it comes down to is there are very few actual techniques that the bad guys use to expose or to go after those vulnerabilities. Right now, it looks like there's about 24 cumulative known exploit techniques. So that's the key. That's where all the sophistication is, right? So why haven't we been doing this for a long time? It's very complex. A lot of things that happen behind the scenes to be able to go in and actually take a look and understand and block that technique. Nice thing is now, if you can block that technique and you can watch and you can see that technique from happening, you can control that, you're going to have really high success rates, right? Because it's a known technique. They're doing something, they're using a very limited set of rules to expose that vulnerability. Here's I guess, the introduction.
Mankind has never been alone. From the beginning, he's lived within the long shadow of one threat after another. So mankind creates a tool and defeats the threat, and new threats emerge. And so it goes. From the Stone Age to the Bronze Age to the Information Age. Today, the long shadow of threats extends further than ever. What blocked last year's malware won't stop this year's ransomware. A new tool is required. A completely new approach to endpoint security. That tool is here.
All right, so Intercept X, that is our product that we just released. Intercept X is going after the exploits. It's actually looking at the exploits. It is 100% signature-less. We're no longer having to look at hashes. We don't do any of those sorts of things. It's above and beyond execution prevention because we're actually looking at the exploit itself to be able to protect against the exploit. One of the things when we look at the advanced malware issues is, again, the ability to detect that something malicious is happening. So some of these components have been available in some traditional antivirus vendors out there. When you look at being able to look at systems, behaviors, that sort of stuff, this is really kind of taking it to the next level where when we see an event happen like a ransomware event, hopefully we've prevented it. If we haven't prevented it, again, they're going to use the same sort of techniques. So we can see that they're doing this encryption. They're doing it in a malicious manner. We have encryption technology as well, so we understand the difference between good and bad encryption. We can look at the behavior. Once we understand that that behavior is bad, we can convict that behavior. In ransomware events, where it's encrypting files, we can automatically revert those files back to their clean state, so you don't have to go through and do your restore backup. This all happens within seconds. And then you can identify the source of the attack. We'll be able to show some of these kind of from a high level. We can show them in more detail if you want to stop by after, and we can kind of take a look at it a little bit more. Your 0 day, this is where we're actually looking at the exploit itself. And when we look at the types of techniques that they're using to actually exploit the vulnerabilities, I'll pull up the screen where we can see just some of the techniques that they're using. And then we need to be able to get full visibility into what happened. So be able to produce that forensics threat chain. What happened? Where did it come in? How did it get into my environment? What other files did it touch? You've cleaned it up on this system, but it's also left parts over here that you're unaware of. So give you that complete threat chain, tell you what files it touched, what registry entries it talked to, what IP addresses, or where it went on the internet. Did it send any data out? It'll give you that complete threat chain, the forensics grade analytics. Here's some of the types of exploits. Again, when we look at the battle, there's a lot of new malware every year. You have to keep chasing that. You're going to be chasing that for a very long time. And that's what we started realizing a few years back, and that's why we started working on this product. We've actually been working on a lot of our technologies, our synchronized security, for over 5 years. So some of the stuff that we'll show is new to the industry, but not necessarily new to Sophos. You can identify the techniques. You're going to be a lot further ahead of the game because you have very few set of techniques that you need to protect against. And that's where your false positive rate really starts to drop. And exploit prevention is going to monitor the processes. We're going to look at all the different ways and things that they're doing to try and inject those problems into your environment. This is the kind of some of the view. So this is the end user interface, so you can see all the different components. This is running, this particular view that we're seeing here is actually running our Intercept X, which can run alongside any antivirus. So our signature list technology can run alongside anybody else in the industry. This is also running our antivirus. So it's, in this case, we see one console. It's giving us our signature detection. It's giving us our behavior analytics. It's giving us a lot of different visibility and view into what's happening in that environment. And that's the user screen over on the right. You can see the administrative UI. There's a lot more things that the admin UI is going to tell you. Hopefully within the next screen here, you'll be able to actually see some of that administrative console. This is the admin UI on the computer itself. And then down below, again, is just kind of showing some different techniques that we're taking a look at and protecting against. So ransomware, that is the biggest problem today. Why? Because it affects everybody. You don't just have to be healthcare. You don't have to just be, a large government entity. This is affecting the home user. Why? Because when they go through and they write their specific attack, they're going to write it for home user. They're going to write it for healthcare. They're going to write it for whatever target they're going after. It's going to be specific to that target. Once that is launched and we see that sort of event happen, this is the administrative dashboard. So this is the threat analytics. When we look at the threat analytics, we can see this little spider-looking graph. That's the threat chain. So we have beacon events, are the little events with the red marker. Those are going to be applications, processes that are run. This one, luckily, you can see. Actually, you probably can't see. If there's an orange-looking icon, that means it's a call out to some other network device, whether it's on the internet, whether it's internal, it's a call out to an IP address. So these are processes, things like Word, Excel, whatever it might be, Java, Flash. And then you're going to see files and registry entry changes and that sort of stuff. We have a product called Sophos Clean. So if you're not running Sophos, or if you think you have some sort of an event, this is a standalone product that you can use, and it can go through and run a scan on a computer and tell you what kind of events that are there and clean them up. So Sophos Clean is different than Intercept. Intercept is a managed application that you can manage. Clean as you install it on a standalone, you send it to the home user or whatever it might be, and they can go ahead and clean their system up. So when we start taking a look at wanting to share threat analytics and use intelligence from one product to the next, that's when you start getting a lot of power and a lot of control into your environment. So when we look at synchronized security, that is our philosophy of taking Sophos security products, letting them share threat intelligence, and letting each one of those products talk to the other to say, hey, you did something bad. Go in and clean it up. Or, I'm doing something bad. I can see this workstation. I'm doing something bad. I can tell the firewall, don't let me get out to the internet until this is fixed. Or don't allow me access to my files until I get this incident remediated. I'll show you that in one of the demos that we go through. There's the heartbeat. That is really the component that we're using to share a lot of the threat intelligence. There's a lot of companies out there who will have similar terms, heartbeat. If you think, a while back, you had the ability to do some sort of some sort of a health check. You can make sure you're running an antivirus and make sure it's up to date. If it's all up to date, then great, you can go out to the internet. This is much deeper than that. It's actually sharing threat intelligence information. That's just a small subcomponent of it. So the heartbeat is that secure channel that they're using to share and communicate with each other about their health. When we take a look at our firewall components, we have really two main firewall products. The reason why we have two is because of the different needs in the industry. So the SGUTM, we've had this for a long time. This has been kind of the traditional firewall. This is the firewall that was designed, way back when we started designing firewalls. So we're looking at devices. We're looking at firewall stuff, right? session table. We're looking at ports, where they're going. We're also able to do IPS, intrusion protection. It has the advanced state capabilities. But what we've realized that for today's environment, this needed to be redesigned. It needed to be thought about in today's business rules. And that is why we've developed the XG. The XG is designed today with a lot of that traditional technology that we have, but it's all designed around the identity. The 8th layer of the OSI. 8th layer is a debatable term. We actually have patented the 8th layer of the OSI. But it's really around, I'm going to apply a policy to that user. I want to make sure that that policy applies to that user no matter what device they log into in my network and no matter where they go. So the XG, as well as our central, our endpoint, those are the two products that work together. You can define one policy that's going to say my finance users can do this, my marketing users can do this, my exec can do this. Again, specific policy to an individual user or group, and that's going to be across the entire organization, not just on a perimeter, sort of standpoint, but also even down to the individual endpoint itself. So let's go in and we'll take a look at a couple of demos here and show a few things of this actually in action. So this is running on my laptop. And what I'm going to do is log into the firewall. So the first things, a couple of things that we're noticing when we log into the firewall here is we can see user-based policies. So I can see my live users. It's a very small environment, so I only have 1 or 2 devices in here. We can see a heartbeat. So I have one computer that happens to be the computer that I'm on that is good, clean, and healthy. If we were to go in and define our policies, what we have set here is basically a rule that says if anything happens in my environment on this computer, I want you to talk to the firewall, and I want you to tell it what my health status is. I want you to talk to our, it's called our safeguard product, which is actually securing data within an organization, encrypting data, whether it's on a cloud account, whether it's on a USB drive, full disk encryption, that sort of stuff. And it's basically, we can see everything is in a great, clean, healthy state right now. So everything is good. I'm not actually going to launch an attack in this case. I'm just going to manually put it in a bad state. So what we're going to see happen here, and do this, is I want to watch, we can watch the firewall, and we can watch this heartbeat monitor. So what the heartbeat monitor is doing is this is kind of giving us insight into the health of that computer. This is not a product that I use for my demos. So the heartbeat monitor is just for my demos. So I can see the system health is good, my services are good, and I don't have any threats on that particular device. We can also see that I can talk out to the internet. So that's great. I can go to salesforce.com, I can go to microsoft.com, I can go to google.com. I can also see down at the bottom the files that I can read. So the files that I can read, one is a private file that contains social security number. I can read the word SSN. The next one is a secret recipe that has the word amazing in it that I'm reading. And then the bottom one is a sensitive file that has I'm looking at the word sensitive. 2 of those files are encrypted, meaning the top one and the bottom one. The bottom one is not encrypted. So when I go into a bad health state, there's a number of refreshes that happen. But essentially the device itself will see that my firewall, once my screen's refreshed, this is happening already, but the refresh rate can take a little bit of time. This is going to go from a 1 red to a 1, or 1 green to a 1 red. Over on my health heartbeat monitor, we're going to see that some of the system services are going to go away. I think I clicked the right one. Yeah, there we go. So when we take a look at here, we notice that a number of things happen. Obviously, I had an event, but my firewall, my rule says if I'm going to Salesforce, I have to be clean. I can go to Microsoft. I can still go to Microsoft. So it's very dynamic in your rule set. You can still have a green reading on Microsoft, Google. You can go to those sites. But the site that contains business information, I don't have access to. Same sort of thing when we look at the other files. You'll notice in this case, I also got a pop-up that said safeguard remove my keys. We can see that I can no longer read those files. They're the encrypted files. So I'm going to go back into a clean state. A lot of this stuff happens automatically. It happens really, really quickly, and you can't normally see unless I go through this manual process. So now what ended up happening was everything's good, everything's clean, my computer's backed up. You can see right now it's actually talking to the safeguard server. What's going to happen is, since the keys are associated to me as a user, it's going to say, hey, you're back in a good state, but I want to know who you are. So put in your password. Once you've validated you are who you say you are, we're going to go ahead and give you access to your files again. So I go ahead and put my information, and now I can have access to those files. So this happens, again, really quickly. That was a manual trigger of an event. A couple of other things when we start taking a look at, here's kind of a file. This fairly typical, it's sort of a message comes in. I want to go ahead and I want to win the lottery because I want to quit working. So I can go ahead and open up my Word document. What it's going to do is go ahead and open up my Word document. In Word, nothing wrong, this is Word 2016. You'll notice right now it's asking me, okay, well, I need to enable content to actually predict the numbers. Macros, right? So I'm going to enable my content. This is going to happen really, really fast. We're not going to be able to see it. So let me explain what's going to happen. I'm going to enable my content. It's going to actually run a ransomware event where it's going to try and encrypt files. We should see on here that it's going to say that file encryption, a ransomware event was triggered. I'm going to go into a red state. So during that process, I'm not going to have access to my files. Ransomware is going through and encrypting my files. It's probably only going to get 3 or 4, and this is going to happen so fast I can't hit refresh. You never really get to see it. I can show you the end result, but it's going to encrypt 3 or 4 files. It's going to then revert those files back to their clean state, and it's going to be like nothing ever happened on this computer. So go ahead and enable my content. Here we can see that it actually just triggered an event. Go back to my heartbeat monitor here. So like I said, when it's an actual event versus killing processes, this happens really, really quick. So it's going to go in. Here we can see ransomware block. It blocked the ransomware from going in and doing what it wanted to do. It's going to go ahead and it's going to remediate it, clean it up. And as soon as it's all clean and that system's back in that clean state, the safeguard again is going to pop up and ask me to log in. I'm going to be able to get access to all of that sort of content. So that's kind of a real quick view into what happens when an event is triggered. We can go in here and I'll take a look at the files. There's a good chance. So these files here, what ended up happening is it went in and encrypted them, and then it went back to the clean state. It can't happen so quick, it doesn't really demo very well. Let me go in and show you what it looks like on the actual administration console of Sophos. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my admin console. I had my email up. You would have seen an email pop up because I had an email generated alert. Or I don't know who else is going to email this. Did. So here, when I log in, you can see I had a number of events that have happened. So I can click on my event here. We can see CryptoGuard ransomware detected. It just happened, right? So that's giving me that. If I go back and I look at my root cause analytics, this is going to go in and generate that chain. This is where I can go in and say, what happened in my environment? I look at artifacts. Here we can see it was Outlook, right? Right there it's telling us Outlook is where it came from. That was what triggered the event. I look at my artifacts. When we go in and we take a look at my business files, here were the business files. right? These were the ones that were impacted, but if you want, I can open them up. They're clean. They're not actually impacted. We go in and we visualize it. There's my threat chain. So I can see Outlook. It actually called out to command and control, 3 IPs, right? So we actually, in this case, this particular event, I had to disable a number of our other features because most of the time we will trigger before it actually calls out command and control, but I wanted the encryption to actually take place. Otherwise, what you would see most of the time, you would see an event, you would see a beacon event, and then you would see, as soon as it tried to call out to command and control, the firewall would have said, no, you can't go there because I know what that is, I know what you're doing, and it's going to block it. So it wouldn't even actually get the encryption key to start the encryption process. Again, as I kind of go and take a look here, here's where we can see that it actually spawned Word. This is Word that it Word opened up, and then I enabled the active content. And again, we can go through. Here's some more call out, command and control. These were the files that it touched. This is the Sophos tester tool. So this wasn't a real true live ransomware event. It was simulating a ransomware event. And then we can see what it did. Even though it was simulated, you won. Here's, the computer went back into the clean state, so it's asking me to log back in so I can get access to my files. So again, you can see that's all that thing. So that's the next part. When you look at a ransomware event, those tend to be very time consuming. You have to quarantine. The user can't use their computer anymore. You have to go in, you have to clean it up. You have to figure out what files that it touched. You have to go and do restores, provided you can do a restore. It's going to hit the local computer first, and not backing up the local computer and you're storing stuff in there, my documents, and that's not redirected. Most of the time, that's gone. Most of the time, you aren't going to be able to use your system restore or your shadow copy because the more advanced ransomware events will actually go in and disable all those features. So that's why some of the more advanced ones it becomes a challenge. So just kind of, this is a tool where it is actually going out looking at different exploits. So here we can see, again, if I wanted to expose an Adobe exploit, these are patched, these are fairly significantly up-to-date programs. And I can actually execute different events against them. Here you're different, again, the different types of techniques that they're using, your stack pivot tables. You look at ransomware, a lot of people still kind of call it crypto wall. Crypto wall really has been dead for a long time. We're at the crypto wall 3 now. But Locky and HydroCrypt have been the more prevalent ones lately. A lot of this stuff is going over HTTPS. So even if you block it, you can't block that in your firewall. You're going to pretty much make the internet useless. So a lot of the more advanced ransomware, there's really not much you can do because they're using industry standard encryption. They're using standard ports. Remember, they're making a lot of money. So they're going to do everything they can to make sure that that triggers. So again, just kind of a few examples of the different types of events and things that we can go ahead and exploit here. Some of these in our tester tool are actually live versions of that real product. Just some people are always skeptical, right? You did special, you did something special there. We have had a lot of third-party do testing of the new intercept, and we hopefully we'll be getting some third-party results released here real soon. It's very promising. Like I showed on that one slide, 100% catch rate in the protect against the vulnerability.